There are secrets that shouldn't be revealed. Secrets that, once exposed, destroy entire families. And what I'm about to tell you is exactly that. A truth so devastating that it remained buried for over 40 years, until a simple photograph changed everything forever. My name is Helena. I'm 35 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I knew my family. I thought I knew who I was, but I was completely wrong. It all started at my grandmother Cecilia's funeral. The church was packed. My grandmother was a respected figure in the small town of Chinatown, in Rio Grande do Sul. For 87 years, she was the perfect matriarch. Kind, generous, always with a smile on her face and a warm hug for anyone who needed it. I was sitting in the front row, between my mother Mariana and my uncle Eduardo. Tears streamed down my face as the priest spoke about my grandmother's exemplary life. Beside me, my mother was strangely composed, almost rigid, her dry eyes fixed on the coffin. "Mom, are you okay?" I whispered. She simply nodded, but her fingers gripped the bag so tightly that her knuckles were white. After the ceremony, we went to Grandma Cecilia's house for the traditional wake. The house was exactly as I remembered it from my childhood. Walls covered in photographs in antique frames, the scent of lavender that she loved, and that wall clock that made a comforting sound. That's when something happened that would change everything. My uncle Eduardo asked me to get some more chairs from the attic. I hesitated. That attic always gave me the creeps as a child, but I agreed. After all, it was just adults there, right? Wrong. When I climbed the creaking stairs and turned on the dim light in the attic, I found dozens of dusty boxes. Boxes that probably hadn't been opened in decades. While searching for chairs, I tripped over an old shoebox that burst open on the floor, scattering yellowed photographs everywhere. I started collecting them when a particular image froze me. It was a black and white photograph from 1979. In it, my grandmother Cecilia was standing next to a man I didn't know. But that wasn't what had left me paralyzed. It was the baby she was holding in her arms. And, written on the back of the photo, in my grandmother's unmistakable handwriting, "Mariana, 3 months. Our last photo together. My mom." But that man wasn't my grandfather Antonio. My grandfather had passed away when I was 10 years old, and I remembered his face perfectly. That man was completely different. Taller, with light eyes and a smile that seemed to carry an enormous weight. My heart raced. I turned the photo over again and, in the bottom corner, something was written that made my blood run cold. "Roberto, I will never forget you. Forgive me." I came down from the attic with the photograph hidden in my coat pocket. During the rest of the wake, I couldn't think of anything else. I watched my mother, trying to find some resemblance to that mysterious man. I watched my uncle Eduardo, who was actually my grandmother's son from her second marriage, searching for some clue. But it was only when everyone had left and it was just me, my mother, and my uncle left to clean the house that I decided to confront her. "Mom, I found something in the attic," I began, my voice trembling. She stopped washing the dishes and turned to me, a look of terror already on her face. It was as if she knew exactly what was coming. "Helena." "No. Who is Roberto?" I asked, taking the photograph out of my pocket. The plate she was holding slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. My uncle Eduardo came running from the living room. "What are you talking about?" I showed him the photo too. My mother leaned against the sink, her face as pale as paper. "Mom," I insisted, my voice now firmer. "Who is this man? Why did Grandma write this?" That's when my mother collapsed. Literally. Her knees gave way and she fell sitting on the kitchen floor, sobbing in a way I had never seen in my entire life. I don't know," she managed to say through tears. "Mom never told me. Dad, Antonio, he was my father. He had to be." But her voice lacked conviction. It was as if, at that moment, she too was questioning everything she had always believed. Eduardo took the photo from my hands, his eyes studying every detail. "This photo was taken 3 years before Mom met my dad," he said slowly. 3 years before you moved to Chinatown. Where did you come from?" I asked. My mother looked up at me with her swollen eyes. Marina Bay. We lived in Marina Bay. But she never talked about that time. She said those memories were too painful. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay staring at that photograph under the light of the bedside lamp in my grandmother's guest room, trying to decipher the enigma. Who was Roberto? Was he my biological grandfather? Why had my grandmother fled Marina Bay? And why had this secret been kept for over 40 years? In the following days, I became a detective. I searched every inch of that house. I found more photos, old letters, documents. And each discovery only deepened the mystery. I found my mother's birth certificate that listed father unknown. I found bus tickets from Marina Bay to Chinatown dated December 1979, shortly after the photo was taken. I found my grandmother's diary, but the 1979 pages had been torn out, deliberately torn out, leaving only fragments of sentences that made no sense. One of those phrases said, "I can't stay. He'll find me." Another, "Mariana deserves a better life than this." And the most disturbing part, what I did was unforgivable, but it was the only choice. That's when I decided I needed to go deeper. I needed to go to Marina Bay. My mother didn't want to come with me. In fact, she begged me to leave the past buried. "Helena, please," she cried, holding my hands. "Mom kept this secret for a reason. Some things shouldn't be discovered." and you rightly feared that our daughter might also be in danger. Cecilia, I spent the rest of my life trying to break this cycle of violence. I never remarried. I never had other children. I couldn't risk perpetuating that curse. But I need you to know, Mariana doesn't have that curse. She is your daughter, raised with your kindness, far from that shadow. You saved not only her life, but her soul. If you ever tell her the truth, please tell her I'm sorry. Tell her that the greatest act of love I've ever witnessed was a mother running away in the middle of the night to protect her daughter from a man who should have protected them. And tell him that, in the end, I found peace in knowing that you two were safe and happy, even if it meant never seeing you again. His presence in my life was brief, but his impact was eternal. With eternal remorse and a love that never deserved to be reciprocated. Roberto, I cried. I cried for hours in that hotel room in Marina Bay, holding that letter, finally understanding the weight my grandmother had carried her whole life. She wasn't keeping a romantic secret. She was keeping a survival secret. She was protecting my mother from a truth that could destroy her, that her biological father came from a lineage of violence and horror. But there was another layer to this secret. When I returned to Chinatown, I found my mother in Grandma's kitchen, making coffee. She looked at me and immediately knew I had discovered something. You went to Marina Bay. That wasn't a question. I went, I confirmed, placing the letter on the table. She read it silently, tears streaming down her face. When she finished, she pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. I knew it, she whispered. My heart stopped. What? Mom told me. Not everything, but enough. It was 2 weeks before she died. She called me for a talk, took my hands and said, Mariana, you need to know that everything I did was out of love. Every lie, every secret, every night I spent awake afraid that they would find us. It was all to protect you. And you didn't tell me? Because I understood why she kept the secret, my mother replied, looking into my eyes. Cecilia wasn't just protecting me. She was protecting you, your future grandchildren, all our descendants from the weight of this story. She wanted us to have lives free from that shadow. But we deserved to know the truth. Did we deserve this? My mother asked softly. Helena, has knowing this truth changed anything fundamental about who you are? About who I am? I thought about it. I thought about my life, about who I was, about the choices I made. No, I admitted. Nothing has changed. Exactly, because we are not defined by the sins of men we have never known. We are defined by the choices we make, by the love we share, by the people we decide to be. Mom understood that. She broke the cycle. Not with confrontation, not with dramatic exposure, but simply by living a good life, raising a daughter with love, building a family based on respect and kindness. She stood up and hugged me. That man, Roberto, he's not my father. Antonio was my father. He taught me to ride a bike, took me to school, dried my tears, gave me a safe home. That is fatherhood. And Mom, her voice faltered. Mom was the bravest woman who ever lived. 6 months have passed since that day. My grandmother's house was sold, her belongings distributed among the family. The photograph from 1979, Roberto's letter, the fragments of her diary, I kept them in a box away from prying eyes. Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I open this box and look at that photo. I look at my grandmother Cecilia, so young, holding my baby mother, next to a man who represented everything she needed to escape from. And I see not a victim, but a warrior. A woman who made the hardest decision a person can make, to leave everything behind to protect her daughter. A woman who carried this secret to the grave, not out of shame, but out of love. The secret remained hidden for decades. And honestly, maybe it was meant to stay hidden, because some truths don't set us free. Some truths only add weight to hearts that already carry enough. My grandmother chose to give us lightness. She chose to give us a childhood without shadows, a life without fear, a future untainted by a violent past. That was her gift. That was her legacy. And now, every time I look at my 3-year-old daughter, the great-granddaughter my grandmother never met, I understand completely. I understand that there are things we do out of love that will never be understood. Silent sacrifices, secrets kept not out of cowardice, but out of courage. My grandmother Cecilia was not just a survivor. She was a protector, a guardian, a woman who understood that sometimes the greatest act of love is carrying a burden alone so that others can fly free. And this secret that has been hidden for decades, it was revealed at the end. But it didn't change anything about who we are. Because we are Cecilia's daughters. We are made of her courage, her love, her unwavering determination to break cycles and build something better. And that's the only legacy that matters.